Akers had been watching the new family unpacking their boxes. 2 little girls and a single father. They were moving in the house next door. Then that dread sound came, startling him immensely. A tune playing from a broken music box danced to his ears. His mother rushed out of the house to hurry him out of the yard and through the back door, as the other neighbors locked their doors and shut the windows. Unbeknownst to his parents, Akers lifted the curtain slightly to sneak a peek. The menacing ice cream truck was making its run through the street. He gulped as it neared their house, only to glide to a stop beside his new neighbors. The older daughter, who seemed to be around his age, tugged on her father's sleeve. He couldn't make out the words she spoke, but he could deduce that she had asked for an ice cream. The little girl led her dad to the truck with a smile. A shiver ran through Akers' spine as the man handed a recently purchased cone to his daughter. Before he even knew what he was doing, the 11-year-old rushed to the door, fidgeting anxiously with the lock. Just as the truck took down the street, he managed to open the door and charge out, ignoring the fearful scream from his mother. The little girl's tongue was less than a centimeter away from licking that ice cream. Akers ran faster than he ever had as he made his way to her. Without a second to spare, he made it there just in time to yank the cone from her grasp before hastily throwing it to the ground as if it were fire burning his hands. His mother caught up with him then, quickly engulfing the boy into an embrace. "What were you thinking?" she cried, withdrawing from the hug to look at him. "I wasn't. I just knew I had to save her," he said. The father and daughter duo looked more confused than anyone Akers had ever seen before. His mother seemed to take notice of this as she rose from the kneeling position she previously took. "Has no one warned you about the ice cream truck?" The man shook his head. Meanwhile, his daughter fearfully hid behind him. The whole ordeal had clearly frightened the little girl. "You should know not to ever buy from that truck. One lick of that substance and you're done," she exclaimed in horror. The family didn't seem to believe her, at least the father didn't. But when the other neighbors rushed out to confirm the statement, he had no choice but to avoid the truck from now on. The next day, at school, a new child was introduced to Akers' class. He recognized it to be the girl from before. Sarah, her name was. She had long blonde hair and green eyes. His new classmate seemed reserved and quiet, though. Akers wondered if yesterday's events were the cause of her unusual nature, or if she was always like that. During lunch, Sarah cautiously approached him. "Thanks for saving me, I guess." Akers nodded. "Will eating that ice cream really kill you?" she suddenly asked. The gleam in her eye was unmistakable. She was curious, fascinated even. "It will," he answered with certainty. Her eyes widened. "But how? I don't understand. Is it poisoned? Why would they be selling it if it is?" Akers sighed. "We don't know the specifics, but everyone who has ever tasted that ice cream has disappeared, never to be found again. My parents told me that there's something in that ice cream that makes people go crazy and run away. They think that those missing people killed themselves or walked into some sort of trap planted by the vendor," he explained. "Why hasn't the police intervened?" "There isn't any proof to convict the vendor. It could be a coincidence, but we know better than that by now." "It seems scary to live in a place with that lunatic driving around," Sarah quietly admitted, head tilted downwards in fear. "Too bad you live there too now." Sarah and Akers became friends, and as the years progressed, their relationship only grew stronger. They were now 16 years old. In English class, Akers presented his essay to the class. He didn't like it when the teacher made them read their works out loud. It was an analysis of a poem they had read. Sarah snickered while he nervously kept trying to pronounce a word without success. Akers glared at her threateningly as he finally spoke the word correctly. That shut her up. "Well done!" The teacher clapped when he was done. "But quietly, so the class wouldn't hear," she said. "I would ask your parents to invest in speech therapy if I were you." Akers frowned. Making his way back to his seat beside Sarah, he held up a hand to halt her as she opened her mouth to comment on his less than stellar performance. "I was nervous. I don't have a speech impediment, I swear." "I wasn't going to say that. I just thought you did a really good job writing your essay, even if you weren't that great at reading it," she whispered to him. The next student had chosen an alternative option for the project. Rather than analyzing a poem, they had written one themselves. I feel empty. Is anyone there? Why is it so dark? The cold current flows through my ebony locks, a frown glazes my face. Now I'm thinking that I'm ready. Why must I wait? It's so cold here. Maybe it's better to just be empty. The student finished reading their poem. The teacher didn't seem very delighted with the work. For one, it was too short. It also had a questionable and unclear topic. Regardless, it really seemed like the girl, Amber, was speaking from her heart. That was the main problem. Akers knew Amber lived in his neighborhood as well. He had seen her around ever since he moved there at a young age. She used to keep her black hair short, but recently grew it out. It was funny because Sarah used to keep her hair long, and now it was short. He recognized that her poem was worrisome, especially since it seemed like she was talking about herself, or someone had the same hair color at least. Class ended, and the rest of the day went by quickly without any interesting events taking place. Something interesting did take place the next day, though. Akers found himself staring out the window as he ate his morning cereal. The blare of the truck running across the road disturbed the peaceful chirps of birds. That awful song that he sometimes heard in his dreams had come to taunt him again. Any young children that had been playing outside quickly entered their homes, locking the door behind themselves. The ice cream truck didn't normally make its rounds this early. It was before school. Everyone was busy getting ready anyway. He didn't bother to draw the curtains over the window this time. The choice allowed him to observe as someone actually ventured out of their house. Akers' eyes widened as a figure slowly made their way across the empty road and towards the truck. All he could spot was black hair. The person came closer to the ice cream truck, all the while nearing his home. He could see them clearly now. Amber. He didn't understand. She knew about the truck's dangers. They had spoken about it before. Despite the aura of awareness the girl gave off, she continued her trek to the vehicle. Akers watched, mouth agape in shock, as Amber bought an ice cream. He wondered if she was going to use it as a weapon. Maybe she was planning on making someone eat it. But then everyone would know she was responsible. However, the police probably couldn't convict her of murder anyway. His train of thought came to a halt as the girl brought the cone up to her own lips. Using her tongue, she scooped the ice cream into her mouth. Many of the residents who were looking out the window gasped at the action and continued to watch as Amber devoured the entire treat. She went to school as if nothing happened. Akers could tell she wasn't bothering to take any notes or read the text during English class. She knows it's over, he realized. He and Sarah didn't dare speak to Amber that day. No one was shocked when they received the news that she had gone missing the following night. The teacher later told the students to maintain hope for their classmates as the search for Amber continues. Akers had no such hope, nor did Sarah. They knew. 2 years later, a lot had changed. Akers and Sarah had sent out applications to multiple universities, but they were both aiming to attend a specific one together. Their relationship had, after all, morphed into something quite different. Quite different, he mused as they kissed. Those two really shouldn't be making out right now, though. They were supposed to be watching Sarah's 8-year-old sister while her dad was on vacation. Melanie was busy playing outside, so maybe it wouldn't hurt. What's the worst that can happen, Akers thought. Akers' senses were drowned out by the intoxicating scent of Sarah and the feel of the skin on her neck between his teeth. But then suddenly she was pulling away with a panicked look on her face. He contemplated what he had done wrong as she rushed out the door. It made sense once he noticed the song playing outside. It was night. What was the truck even doing around here? Then a scream pierced through the droning of that horrendous tune. Akers quickly joined Sarah outside to locate the source of the cry. Why would you do that? I warned you. The man was really nice to me. He even said I could have it for free. It tasted really good, too. His heart skipped a beat. Melanie had tasted the ice cream. Sarah was understandably distraught as they re-entered her house, Melanie in tow. Look, all the ice cream does is make them leave. She's an 8-year-old. I'm sure we can prevent her from running away. We'll just have to keep a close eye over her, he told her after Melanie had gone to bed. Akers wasn't too sure of his words, though. Sarah shook her head, tears streaming down her face. It won't work. Even if we can keep her here tonight, she'll leave as soon as she gets the chance. Maybe Melanie will make her escape when she goes to school tomorrow. It could even be sooner. It's going to be okay. No, it's not. We should have been watching her. An idea struck him then. We don't know where they go. Maybe they don't actually die there. What are you suggesting? Sarah asked. Let's follow Melanie wherever she goes. We can bring her back after she sees her destination. That might get it out of her system, Akers explained. Sarah perked up slightly. It could work, or maybe we'll just end up dying too, she responded. You're right, I'll go without you. No, Sarah intently said. Grabbing his hand, she interlocked their fingers together. We'll do this together. I have to protect my sister, she told him, giving his hand a light squeeze. They crept into Melanie's bedroom and took turns keeping watch throughout the night. When the little girl suddenly jolted up, Akers was sure this was it. For a split second, he thought it might be best not to wake Sarah. It would be better if she stayed behind, away from all the danger. But he truthfully didn't want to go alone, so he swiftly shook her awake. Melanie didn't even notice them as she climbed out the window. It was strange how she was able to climb down so effortlessly. Both Akers and Sarah had difficulty following her out that way. They trailed closely behind the 8-year-old as she navigated through the streets. Melanie led them into the woods past the line of houses. She seemed to know exactly where she was going as she walked ahead. Eventually, she knelt to the ground and began shoving around the dirt. What's she doing? Sarah whispered. Akers just shrugged. The girl dug with her fingers, collecting profuse amounts of dirt and grime beneath her nails. Akers had nearly wanted to help her, but he decided against it. It probably wouldn't be good to engage her in this state. Something beneath the soil became evident. Melanie had uncovered a trap door. Sarah and Akers exchanged glances. They took a look at the entrance. It seemed dark and ominous. He could tell there was fear in her expression at the thought of falling down there. Akers himself was hesitant to make the plunge. He took her hand and interlocked their fingers. We'll do this together, and we'll make it back out. I promise. She nodded. Their joined hands parted ways. The couple took turns entering through the trap door. It was a dark corridor with a fruity smell. Akers pulled out his phone to use the flashlight. He pointed the light up where he saw clumps of green, white, brown, and pink ice cream leaking from the ceiling. Sarah gasped as some of the green cream dripped down onto her head. She rose her hands to wipe the substance off her hair. It's the ice cream, don't touch it, he warned her. Sarah's arms fell limp at her sides in response, a fearful expression cursing her face. They continued down the hall in search of Melanie, who they had lost track of. Should I film with my phone? The footage could serve as proof to convict this sicko, Sarah suggested. Akers shook his head. You need your hands free in case something happens. You're holding your phone! We can't very well go without light, he snapped. The blonde sighed beside him. It's best not to fight. The situation is tense, but we must focus, she said. Akers nodded in agreement. Finally, they found the room the tunnel led to. It was empty from what Akers could tell. You've come for the little girl, no? A voice suddenly spoke, startling them both. Give me my sister back, Sarah shouted in demand. Akers held his hand up to quiet her as he carefully analyzed his surroundings for the source of the voice. The sound of a click echoed throughout the halls. Then they heard light thumping heading their way. Akers quickly spun around and held up his phone. Sarah brought a hand up to her mouth to muffle her cries. There was a monster, a white glob of cream dripping down a towering figure. Big bulging red eyes were connected to whatever was beneath the cream. Akers could see the misery in those eyes as they were popped through the whiteness and peering at him. Strands of ebony hair clustered at the top and streamed down, making indents in the ice cream as it extended through it. It groaned, and it was the most disturbing sound Akers had ever heard. This creature was in so much pain, he knew. Then a laughter sounded throughout the room. Akers turned to see a man creep out from behind a wall he didn't even know was there. Sarah recognized the person. It was the man who had sold her that ice cream all those years ago. I let this one loose to meet you. I believe you two have met her before, am I right? He said. Akers and Sarah simultaneously recalled that day. The creature had black hair and familiar eyes. Could it really be? Akers felt a pang as his realization truly dawned on him then. What have you done to Amber? Sarah angrily cried out. It's only what she's done to herself. Your friend makes for a lovely little beast, the man cackled. Akers turned to Amber, if you can still call her that, and stared at what she had become. It was horrifying. This, she managed to say in a voice that Akers didn't remember being her own. It's not not what I wanted," Amber mumbled after a bit of struggling. It was hard to make out the words, but he understood. She wanted to leave her life with that ice cream, but this was far worse. Becoming a monster wasn't Amber's intention. With tears in her eyes, Sarah asked the question she was dreading. "Did you do this to my sister?" "No, only certain people can undergo the process of transforming. Melanie just isn't that special. She'll make a good meal for my precious creatures, though," he explained. "Don't you dare!" she exclaimed. "Unless," the man grabbed one of the cones lying atop a shelf in the room. He stood directly beneath a clump of ice cream, collecting the drops within the cone. He held the ice cream out to Sarah. "You'd like to take her place? Both of you are suitable to make brilliant creatures. I'd much rather have that than some food." They both shivered at the idea of becoming one of those monsters. "Never!" Icarus retaliated. The man sighed. "I really would like to turn you into my new masterpiece, though. I suspected that you'd refuse once you got here, which is why I devised a little game for us to play." Curiosity and concern flared within Icarus as that evil man unlocked a door. The duo cautiously followed him into the new room. They were shocked with what they saw there. A huge hourglass stood in the center of the poorly lit area. Melanie was trapped in the bottom half, her hands pressed firmly against the glass as she looked on in fear. The sand was slowly falling down from the top, threatening to suffocate the young girl as it piled over her. "In about an hour, all of that sand will have fallen on top of her. She will drown under it," the man cruelly explained. You can't do this!" Sarah shouted. "Maybe not. The choice is yours. There is a path that leads to a floor right below the hourglass. You'll find a lever there, and if it's pulled, a trapdoor will open beneath Melanie for her to escape through. There's also a ladder there for you all to climb your way out of here. If you can reach it before the last of the sand seeps down, I'll let you all go. If not, you two shall be my newest creations, and Melanie will be your first meal as monsters." Icarus frowned. This was risky. Besides, what if he still won't let them go once they reach the lever? He knew the man simply couldn't be trusted, but what other choice did they have? "Which way?" Sarah asked. "Just follow that path," he answered, pointing in a direction. Icarus reluctantly took Sarah's hand and moved the path. They didn't come across any abnormalities for a while as they continued down the lane. Suddenly, he felt the absence of Sarah's hand. A scream echoed throughout the area. Icarus snapped his head to the left where his girlfriend had previously been walking beside him. She was no longer there. Instead, he saw another one of those monsters. It twisted its head and smiled a razor-sharp grin. This one smelled awful. It must have become this way long ago. He heard another scream coming from one of the halls. The path to the exit was straight ahead, but he recognized that voice as Sarah's, which propelled him to go that way instead. Icarus found her struggling on the floor with another creature. The monster was rubbing her mouth, clearly trying to get her to consume some of the ice cream. Sarah kept her mouth closed and elbowed the chubby body, creating a huge dent in his chocolate flesh. He quickly extended a hand to help her up, which she gladly took. They sprinted back on track to the exit. "Did you eat any of it?" he asked. "I don't think so," she replied, sounding fairly uncertain. The couple could only hope for the best at this point. There were more obstacles and less light further down the way. Icarus had to retrieve his phone from his pocket to use it as a flashlight again. At the same time, he checked the time. Icarus saw that they only had 5 minutes left to get to the lever. He saw it. The lever. It was right there. Icarus could also see that it was being guarded by a creature. It was Amber this time. They began to run towards the lever, but then a huge wooden beam fell from the ceiling. It suddenly crashed onto the floor. Icarus skidded to a halt along with Sarah. The exit was behind them, but it wouldn't open unless they pulled that lever. Besides, it's not like they wanted to leave without Melanie anyway. Sarah tried lifting it, but it was too heavy. She attempted to go over it or even under it, but none of those options panned out well either. Meanwhile, Icarus hastily unlocked his phone to check the time. "There's only 2 minutes left," he cried. Now panting, she ceased her futile attempts and looked on in distress. Icarus might have tried helping her lift it, but he knew such a large beam would not budge. What were they to do? Amber moved towards the lever. Icarus's eyes widened as he held on to this growing seed of hope. Sarah bit her lip in anticipation of what would happen. She pulled it, and the trapdoor opened. Melanie came down, a spluttering mess covered in sand. Crawl under the beam, Sarah anxiously instructed. It looked like an 8-year-old could probably make the fit. Melanie successfully made it to the other side. They turned to the exit, which had actually opened, much to Icarus' surprise and relief. Sarah urged her sister to begin climbing the ladder to freedom. Icarus went next. She started climbing it last. As Sarah neared the top, she mouthed a thank you to Amber, and before she left, she managed to fish a lighter out of her pocket with her free hand. The lighter landed directly atop the wooden beam when she dropped it. The fire spread quick, and the last thing Sarah saw before she escaped that nightmare was Amber's creamy statue rapidly melting away. They all made it back to her house without any injuries. Melanie seemed normal again, and it soon became evident that Sarah had not, in fact, eaten any of the ice cream by accident. The whole ordeal weighed heavily on Icarus' mind as the next few years went by. He kept wondering if that man was still doing this. He hadn't seen the ice cream truck since then, so if the crazy vendor was still at it, then it must be in a new, yet ignorant neighborhood. By the time 4 years passed, he didn't think about the incident as much. There were other important things going on now, like today, which was his wedding day. Sarah looked beautiful in her white dress as she approached him at the altar. Melanie, who was now 12 years old, had been the flower girl. After they said their vows and got married, the reception began. They had ordered a strawberry cake, but when the dessert entered the scene, it didn't seem like what they bought. Icarus and Sarah were horrified to see that their wedding cake was made of ice cream.